I was 35 years old when a roadside bomb in Mosul stopped my heart, and Iraqi military doctors pronounced me dead after 20 minutes of failed resuscitation attempts. But during those minutes when I was clinically dead in March 2017, I encountered Jesus Christ in ways that changed everything. And when he sent me back to my body, I returned with a testimony that would cost me my military career but give me eternal life. My name is Omar Hassan. I was born in 1982 in Baghdad into a middle-class Sunni Muslim family. My father worked as civil engineer, and we lived comfortably in a safe neighborhood during Saddam Hussein's era. I grew up in relatively stable Iraq, attending good schools and having normal childhood. Everything changed in 2003 when I was 21 years old. The American invasion toppled Saddam's government and plunged Iraq into chaos. The stability I had known my entire life disappeared overnight, replaced by sectarian violence, insurgency, and constant insecurity. My family struggled to survive in the new reality. In 2005, at age 23, I joined the new Iraqi Army being formed with American assistance. Iraq needed soldiers to fight insurgents and restore order, and military service offered stable income during uncertain times. I was motivated by both practical need and genuine desire to help rebuild my country. My military training was intense, combining Iraqi and American methods. I learned combat skills, weapons proficiency, tactical operations, and counterinsurgency techniques. I was assigned to infantry unit operating primarily in Baghdad and surrounding areas, conducting patrols, securing checkpoints, and responding to insurgent activity. Over the next 12 years, I served continuously in the Iraqi Army. I was promoted through ranks based on performance and experience, eventually becoming sergeant. I participated in numerous operations against various insurgent groups, earning commendations for bravery and leadership. By 2017, at age 35, I was experienced combat veteran with 12 years of service. My experience had hardened me. I had witnessed violence, lost comrades, and learned to suppress emotions to function in constant danger. I was a good soldier, disciplined, courageous, committed to mission. But spiritually I was empty. Islam was cultural identity I maintained, but after years of seeing religious extremists cause so much violence in Islam's name, my faith had become hollow ritual without genuine conviction. I prayed mechanically when required, fasted during Ramadan out of habit, and maintained Muslim identity for family and social reasons. But I had stopped believing that any of it mattered. If Allah existed and cared about Iraq, why had he allowed such suffering? Why did religious people cause the most violence? What was the point of faith that produced only hatred and destruction? By early 2017, I was spiritually dead long before the bomb that would stop my heart. I was going through motions of military service and religious practice, but feeling nothing, believing nothing, hoping for nothing beyond survival. I had no idea that everything was about to change in the most dramatic way possible. March 23, 2017, started as routine patrol day. My unit was assigned to secure a section of eastern Mosul that had recently been cleared of ISIS militants. Our mission was to patrol the area, check for remaining threats, and provide security while civilian infrastructure was being restored. We traveled in convoy of 3 vehicles, moving slowly through damaged streets. The neighborhood showed evidence of intense fighting, destroyed buildings, rubble everywhere, abandoned vehicles. But the immediate danger seemed past, and we were conducting what we expected to be relatively safe reconnaissance patrol. At approximately 3:30 p.m., our convoy was moving through intersection when the explosion happened. A roadside IED, improvised explosive device, that had been hidden in rubble detonated as our lead vehicle passed. The blast was massive, far more powerful than typical IEDs we encountered. The explosion threw our vehicle onto its side. I was seated near the blast point, and the force of the explosion hit me directly. I felt intense heat and pressure, then everything went black. I don't remember the impact, the pain, or the immediate aftermath. My consciousness simply ended in that moment. What I learned later was that my fellow soldiers immediately began rescue operations despite ongoing danger. They pulled me from the destroyed vehicle and began emergency medical treatment. I wasn't breathing, had no pulse, and was bleeding severely from shrapnel wounds. The combat medic began CPR immediately while calling for medical evacuation. A military ambulance arrived within minutes and rushed me to the nearest field hospital. The medical team continued resuscitation efforts during transport, CPR, defibrillation attempts, emergency medications to restart my heart. But nothing was working. My heart had stopped, and they couldn't restart it. At the field hospital, doctors took over resuscitation efforts. They tried everything in their protocols: advanced cardiac life support, multiple rounds of epinephrine, repeated defibrillation attempts. They worked on me for 20 minutes, following every procedure, trying every intervention available. But my heart would not restart. At 3:47 p.m., exactly 17 minutes after the explosion, the senior doctor pronounced me dead. He recorded my time of death in the medical log. They had done everything possible, but the injuries were too severe and the cardiac arrest too prolonged. I was gone. My body was moved to a separate area of the field hospital where deceased soldiers were prepared for transport to Baghdad. A chaplain was called to perform religious rituals. My commanding officer was notified to begin the process of informing my family. Official paperwork was started documenting my death in combat. But what the doctors didn't know, what no one in that field hospital could see, was where I actually was during those minutes when they were pronouncing me dead and preparing my body for burial. While they were documenting my death, I was standing in the most brilliant light I had ever experienced, face to face with someone I had been taught was merely a prophet. I was clinically dead, but more alive than I had ever been. And what I was experiencing during those minutes would transform everything I thought I knew about life, death, God, and truth. The real story wasn't happening in that field hospital. It was happening in a place beyond their medical instruments and protocols, in the presence of Jesus Christ himself. The transition from explosion to this new reality was instantaneous. One moment there was blast and darkness. The next moment I was standing in brilliant light unlike anything earthly. The light wasn't harsh or blinding. It was warm, peaceful, and somehow alive. I felt completely whole, without pain, without the injuries that had killed my body. I looked down and saw myself, not my physical body, but some form of myself that was real and substantial. I felt more genuinely alive than I ever had in my physical existence. Confusion and wonder filled me as I tried to understand where I was and what had happened. Then I saw him. A figure of pure light and love stood before me, and though I couldn't see detailed physical features through the brilliance, I knew immediately who this was. This was Jesus Christ, not the diminished prophet Isa that Islam taught about, but the living Son of God radiating divine glory and love. Terror should have filled me. I was a Muslim soldier standing before the Christian God I had been taught to reject. But instead of fear, I felt overwhelming love emanating from him. Love that knew everything about me, every failure and sin, yet loved me completely and unconditionally. It was love I had never experienced from any human source. Jesus spoke to me, though I don't know if it was audible words or direct communication to my spirit. He said, "Omar, I know you have been searching for truth your entire life, though you didn't realize it. I am the truth you've been seeking. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." I wanted to stay in his presence forever. The peace, the love, the sense of being fully known and fully accepted. It was everything my soul had hungered for without knowing it. Compared to this reality, my entire life had been shadow and emptiness. But Jesus continued speaking. "It is not your time yet. I am sending you back because I have work for you to do. You will tell people that I am alive, that I have power over death, that I am the resurrection and the life. Many will not believe you. Some will oppose you. But you will be my witness to those who need to know that death is not the end and that I offer eternal life." I wanted to protest, to beg to stay in his presence. Returning to physical life after experiencing this reality seemed like returning to prison after tasting freedom. But I also understood that Jesus was giving me mission, that my resurrection would serve his purposes, that my testimony would help others discover what I had found. Jesus touched me, or I felt what seemed like a touch, and suddenly I was being pulled away from that place of light and peace. The transition was rapid and disorienting. The brilliant light faded, darkness returned, and I felt myself being drawn back towards something heavy and painful. Then, with jarring suddenness, I felt physical sensation return, the weight of a body, the pain of injuries, the desperate need to breathe. My eyes opened to fluorescent hospital lights, and I gasped air into lungs that had been still for 18 minutes. The moment I opened my eyes and gasped for air, the field hospital erupted in shock. The doctor who had pronounced me dead 20 minutes earlier was standing nearby when my chest suddenly rose and I began breathing. He shouted for his team, and medical personnel rushed to my side, unable to believe what they were witnessing. They immediately began checking vital signs that had been absent minutes before. My heart was beating, slowly at first, then strengthening. My blood pressure was registering. My breathing was labored but functional. I was alive, despite having been clinically dead with no heartbeat or respiration for 18 minutes. The medical team worked frantically to stabilize me, treating my injuries and monitoring my reviving systems. They kept saying it was impossible, that people don't come back after that long without oxygen to the brain, that there must have been some mistake in the initial assessment. But the death certificate had already been filled out, the time of death recorded, the notification process started. I was conscious but disoriented, struggling to reconcile the physical pain and medical chaos with the peaceful reality I had just left. The contrast was jarring, from the presence of Jesus to a chaotic field hospital, from perfect peace to confusion and pain. But I knew what had happened was real, that I had truly died and been sent back with a mission. Over the following hours, my condition continued to stabilize in ways the doctors couldn't fully explain. While I had significant injuries from the blast, I shouldn't have survived given the length of time my heart had stopped. The lack of oxygen to my brain for 18 minutes should have caused severe damage, yet I was conscious, coherent, and mentally functioning normally. When I was stable enough to speak clearly, I told the doctors and my commanding officer what had happened. I explained that I had died, that I had encountered Jesus Christ, that he had sent me back with a message. Their reactions ranged from medical skepticism to uncomfortable dismissal. They suggested I had experienced hallucination caused by oxygen deprivation or trauma-induced delusion. But I knew what I had experienced was not hallucination. The reality of standing in Jesus' presence was more vivid and real than anything in my physical existence. I had encountered the living God, and he had sent me back for a purpose. I couldn't deny what I had seen and experienced, regardless of whether others believed me. Within days, I was evacuated to a military hospital in Baghdad for continued treatment and recovery. The story of the soldier who died and came back to life had spread throughout my unit, creating a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and discomfort. Some soldiers asked genuine questions. Others avoided me, unsettled by someone who had crossed into death and returned. During my hospital recovery, I had time to process what had happened and what it meant. I had been a Muslim soldier serving in Iraq's army, and I had encountered Jesus Christ during clinical death. He had sent me back to be his witness. But bearing that witness in Iraq, in Muslim military culture, would cost me everything I had built over 12 years of service. I faced a choice that would determine my future. Would I deny what I had experienced to protect my career and safety? Or would I tell the truth about meeting Jesus, knowing the consequences would be severe? After 3 weeks in the hospital recovering from my injuries, I was discharged and returned to light-duty status. Physically, I was healing remarkably well given the severity of my injuries and the fact that I had been dead. The doctors had no medical explanation for my survival and recovery, calling it unprecedented. But I faced a more difficult recovery than physical healing. I couldn't pretend my experience hadn't happened. I couldn't return to being the same soldier I had been before the explosion. I had met Jesus Christ, and he had commissioned me to tell others about him. That mission was more important than my military career or personal safety. I began sharing my testimony with fellow soldiers, carefully at first, then more openly. I explained that I had died, encountered Jesus, and been sent back. I told them Jesus was not merely a prophet as Islam taught, but the divine Son of God who had power over death. I described the love I had experienced in his presence, love that Islam had never offered me in years of religious practice. The response was swift and severe. Most soldiers were offended that I would make such claims, viewing my testimony as an attack on Islam. Some accused me of fabricating the story for attention. Others suggested the explosion had damaged my mind. My commanding officers warned me to stop discussing my experience, saying it was causing disruption and undermining morale. But I couldn't stop. Jesus had sent me back specifically to be his witness, and I couldn't deny him to preserve my position. Within 2 months of returning to duty, I was brought before military tribunal on charges of apostasy and undermining Islamic values within the military. The Iraqi military was predominantly Muslim, and open conversion to Christianity was viewed as betrayal. I was given choice: recant my claims about Jesus, return to Islam, and promise to stop spreading Christian message, or face dishonorable discharge and possible legal prosecution for apostasy. I chose to stand by my testimony. At age 35, after 12 years of military service, I was dishonorably discharged from the Iraqi Army. The discharge ended my military career, but also freed me to follow Jesus openly. I connected with Iraq's underground Christian community, believers who met secretly due to persecution. They welcomed me with joy, celebrating my testimony and helping me grow in understanding of the faith I had encountered supernaturally. Today, I work with organizations that help Muslim seekers discover Jesus Christ. My testimony of dying, meeting Jesus, and being sent back to life resonates powerfully with Muslims who have been taught that Jesus was merely a prophet. I can testify from personal experience that he is far more. He is the living Son of God who has power over death itself. I lost my military career, faced family rejection, and continue facing threats because of my faith. But I gained something infinitely more valuable. I know Jesus Christ personally, not through religious teaching, but through direct encounter. I died and he brought me back. I stood in his presence and experienced his love. And I will spend the rest of my resurrected life telling everyone that he is the resurrection and the life, just as he promised. Death couldn't hold me because Jesus wouldn't let it. And that same power is available to anyone who calls on his name.